Heroes of Olympus, The House of Hades. And so far, I am 127, or excuse me, 124 pages in, and I just finished chapter 4, or I just finished chapter 17. I'm 124 pages in, and I just finished chapter 17. I'm not a super fast reader, but that's where I'm at in the past week. Now, speaking of chapter number and page count and whatnot, the first thing I want to mention about this book, or at least as far as where I am so far in this book, chapter 17, so far, the first several chapters in this book are surprisingly short, okay? Because, like I said, I just finished chapter 17 and I've read 124 pages. 124 divided by 17, that is 7.29 pages read, or 7.29 pages per chapter on average. Okay, so less than 10 pages, or a little over 7 pages per chapter. That's a very low average. When in my opinion, most books contain 10 to 12 to 14, 15, sometimes even 20 pages on average for a chapter. So to have it just over seven, that's a pretty short average for chapters so far. Now, further on in the book, that might, change, but at least so far to where I'm at, the chapters are surprisingly short, which I'm actually okay with. I'm actually a fan of short chapters because it gives me opportunities to find good stopping points as I read. Because I like to, as much as possible, take a if I need a good stopping point, I try to make it to the end of that chapter. That's usually a good stopping point. So I like it when books have really short chapters because that just gives me more easier opportunities to find that stopping point when I need to take a break. So um, now on to the main point of discussion with this book. So the House of Hades. I try really hard to not give away any spoilers or anything like that in my content. Unfortunately, with this, I'm going to have to give away a slight spoiler to anyone who has not yet read The Mark of Athena. Okay, because one of the main focuses of the House of Hades is the fact that Percy and Annabeth have fallen into Tartarus, or they fell into Tartarus at the end of Mark of Athena, and now they're trying to survive Tartarus. And Leo and the rest of the guys, they're also doing an adventure, and they talk about that and stuff. But uh, like I said, Percy and Annabeth spend a lot of time in Tartarus in this book, at least so far. And I gotta say, I feel kind of bad saying this, but I am loving Rick Riordan's descriptions of Tartarus, and I feel bad because Percy and Annabeth, although they are fictional, they're the ones suffering through this, through Tartarus, and I'm like, oh, this is freaking awesome. I'm loving these descriptions, so I feel bad feeling that way, but anyway. So, for instance, okay, Tartarus is described as the air is hot and dry, and the ground is basically made out of shards of glass. And the air is so hot that blisters on Percy and Annabeth's skin start to form. Okay. There's also blood red clouds in the sky above Tartarus. So I guess Tartarus has its own atmosphere or something. I don't know. And while the clouds are described as being blood red, it is not yet confirmed or really even suggested yet, I guess, that the clouds contain blood. It just says that they're blood red. That's the color of them. They're blood red clouds. They haven't said that they contain blood. However, I know how, rain and clouds and precipitation, evaporation, I know how all that works, okay? So if these blood red clouds actually do contain blood, can you just imagine, poor Percy and Annabeth, walking through Tartarus, their skin's boiling and stuff like that. It's so hot, and they got blisters all over their skin and everything like that, and they're trying to survive from fighting monsters, and all this chaos is happening. And then it starts raining blood. It's like what else can what else can go wrong now at this point, So as much as I doubt that it's going to rain blood in this book, I kind of hope it does, because in a sick way, I find that amusing. I mean, I'd feel bad. I like Percy and Annabeth, but I just kind of want to know if there actually is blood in the cause. There probably isn't, but I kind of want to know. Anyway, so next. Oh, so I'm probably mispronouncing this. The River Flemethon. Probably mispronouncing that, okay? Because I know the River Styx and the River Lathe, I think is pronounced, but so the River Flemethon, I think it's pronounced, is basically this river of fire that is pouring down from Hades' palace, and I think it's pronounced Flemethon because when Annabeth mentions that that's the name of the river because they're following it right now, at least at the part of the story I'm at, she says the name of the river to Percy, and Percy's like, Flemethon. It sounds like some kind of a marathon for Hakken Loogies or something like that, or Olympic sport for Hakken Loogies. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. It's phlegm, like phlegm, and then a thon, so it's a phlegmathon or something like that, or phlegm. I don't know, but so that's how I kind of figured out how to. That's how I'm pronouncing it because of what Percy said, because he said, I don't know, probably mispronounced it. But anyway, so the point I'm getting at is, so there's this river of fire. And as if things are not bad enough for Percy and Annabeth as it is, occasionally Percy and Annabeth have to drink from this river of fire, because Annabeth had heard and proven right, because he's super smart, that this river of fire sort of works like a life source for the monsters in Tartarus. And if they drink from it, it basically acts like ambrosia and nectar and all that stuff that the demigods are used to using to sustain or to heal injuries and whatnot. And so she took a gamble, drank from this river, and lo and behold, it did heal her injuries, her blisters, and everything like that. And Percy did the same thing. And of course, they described what drinking this fire river tasted like. Annabeth had mentioned that she had once gone to a restaurant in San Francisco, and she made the mistake of eating a ghost chili. Okay. And she took a little nibble of it, and she said drinking this stuff was like 10 times worse or 100 times worse or something like that than this, ghost chili. So, spicy water, I guess. I don't know. Percy described it as being, he said he took his sip and he's like, spicy yet disgusting. So, and I don't know if this is what Rick Riordan was getting at, but when he said spicy yet disgusting, it kind of reminded me of the Lion King when Simba ate a bug for the first time. He was like, slimy yet satisfying. But anyway, so that is what Percy and Annabeth are having to deal with. They're basically trying to survive hell, and because it's basically Greek hell. Tartarus is basically Greek hell. It's worse than the Fields of Punishment and all that is. Yeah, it's where the worst of the worst go, and they're having to survive that. So, I'm trying to switch to the next one. Notes. Also, last note on that: if hell is real, because it's something I've been, musing on lately, is if hell is real, because then I'm convinced it is a lot like how Rick Riordan is describing Tartarus, because it's hot and fire and monsters and just torment and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure this is what hell actually is. And I give Rick Riordan a lot of credit because, he seems to go to, with all the different locations he mentions in his books, New York and the Hoover Dam and Fort Sumter and Atlanta and all these different places, and now Greek and Rome and all that. I'm convinced that he actually goes on trips, goes to these cities, visits them, so he can properly describe what they look like. He's really good at his research. And with that being said, I'm starting to wonder. I'm like, maybe this guy has been to hell somehow. I don't know. I don't know how Rick Riordan would do that. Obviously he hasn't, but I'm kind of like, what? Knowing him, maybe he has been to hell and somehow has come back. And it's like, this is what hell looks like, and I'm gonna write Tartarus like that. Not seriously, but anyway. So far my only complaint, and this is the last bit about Tartarus and whatnot. I told you it was a main point of the book, or what I was going to talk about tonight. My only complaint about this book so far is there's no map. There's no map of Tartarus. I kind of or at least the underworld. Okay, I was kind of hoping that there would be, but if you open it up, no map, and I'm like, come on, man. You had a map in the Son of Neptune, and also the last Olympian. So Rick Riordan has had has had maps before, but not this time. I don't know. Kind of disappointed in that. So yeah, if you update Rick Riordan, if you update this edition, put a map of the underworld or of Tartarus, or at least the underworld. So now we're gonna. I have a couple more things I wanted to mention about this book, but we're moving on from Tartarus now. So hold on. So, what's Leo and the rest of the party up to? So, Leo and Jason and Piper and everyone else in the Prophecy 7 that's not Percy and Annabeth. At one point, they came across some dwarves. Now, look. I've played Dungeons and Dragons countless times. I've read The Hobbit. I attempted to read The Lord of the Rings. Unfortunately, I never finished it. But I've read Dred Stewart. I love fantasy books, so I know what dwarves are. Okay, but apparently Greek dwarves, I guess is what you would call them. I don't know, or Greek mythology dwarves are vastly different than the Scottish accent battle axe wielding dwarves from Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot, because these things are described as being like humanoid monkey men with a bad fashion sense. Okay, and like I went on Google and I searched for dwarves, Percy Jackson, or Greek dwarves, stuff like that, to get a better idea of what they look like. Because basically, the book was describing them as like these monkey men. I'm like, I started thinking of like the flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz or something like that. So I'm like, let me get a better view of what these things look like. And at least from the fan drawings I could find, they more or less looked like, well, they looked like hobbits mixed with dwarves. Like they had the beards, but they also had like furry feet and stuff like that, like hobbits. And yeah. Anyway, I'm done talking about those dwarves. A couple more, or two more things. So at one point, Leo and Jason come across and I quote, a buck naked statue of Neptune. Okay, the Roman god of water, Roman god of sea. Okay, and when they came across this statue of Neptune, I kept on thinking, I'm like, man, if only Percy were here. If only because he's in Tartarus, like I said. I'm like, if only Percy was here to see his Roman daddy buck naked, that would have been so freaking funny, in my opinion. Okay, and now honestly though, I also started thinking, I'm like, where would Percy rather be? What would he rather be dealing with? Would he rather be in basically hell, or looking at a statue of his Roman daddy naked? Given the circumstances, I think he'd rather be in Rome staring at us like, oh, hey, hi, Dad, what's up? But yeah, so I kind of wished Percy had been there just to see what he would have said to that situation. But of course, he wasn't there because he was in Tartarus, which is honestly a much worse situation to be in. Anyway, so I'm almost done with this. Gonna be a one of my shorter streams as it's turning out. The last thing I want to say real quick is Percy apparently now has a pet Titan. I don't want to go into like spoilers or anything like that. I try really hard not to do that. But I don't know how long how long the situation is gonna carry on for, because I just hit this in the book. But Percy has a Titan friend now, so go figure that one. So and the Titan's like helping them go to Hades Palace and stuff like that. So anyway, so that's where I'm at right now. So I'm gonna, keep reading on. This is probably gonna take me the rest of the month to finish because I am a pretty slow reader. But and then after that, I got some other books planned for October. I'm gonna be reading some horror classics and stuff like that. But yeah, so far I have a feeling that the House of Hades is going to be my favorite Heroes of Olympus book. Mostly because, and again, I feel bad for this. I do, but just reading about Tartarus. It's so fascinating. I feel bad that it's happening to Percy and Annabeth, um, but yeah, I'm loving the House of Hades because I don't know, maybe something's wrong with me, but I like reading about Tartarus and Greek hell and whatnot. So, um, anyway, that's basically it for this stream. So, thank you all for watching.